Thank you everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the short panel. Uh, Before we start the panel, can we have a quick round of introduction on what you are prioritizing in your respective roles right now? Considering the theme is manufacturing 400, in quick, 30 seconds, 1 minute, under 1 minute, what are you prioritizing right now? Looking at India and your strategy, what comes top of your mind? Yeah, sure. The youngest goes first.
So I think at Dixon, like initially we were focused on creating a scale for manufacturing of finished goods and primarily like televisions, mobile phones. But I think now we're prioritizing how can we leverage that scale to sort of get into the component ecosystem. There have been some critics who said that primarily, India has only been doing like screwdriver assembly. And I think it's very important that once you reach a certain scale, you start investing in R&D as well as the component ecosystem. And I think for us, going forward, that's going to be the priority going in the next 2 years to sort of build up a moat by getting into mechanicals, camera modules, display modules, and sort of use that to make a scale for manufacturing here.
And Prithvi, you were mentioning you're also active in implementing robotics and automations in manufacturing, right? How progressed are we from an Indian context in terms of implementing that in our supply chain?
I think we were discussing this earlier. Initially, the robotic ecosystem was focused on China, and people felt that you had to depend on them to sort of manufacture and automate a lot of your processes here. But I feel now you're seeing companies in India who are making these testing robots, AGVs locally, and I think it's great to see because we're using those as well now to sort of improve our productivity. I think when you go to China and you see their factories, you see that what we produce in an hour, they're able to produce 3-4 times just because of the level of automation and testing that they have there. I think it's time for us now to also sort of look at Gen AI, how can we use vision-based inspection systems and sort of increase our productivity to sort of match the levels which are happening in China.
Okay. Next, Sriram, what are you doing now?
Yeah, our focus is fundamentally to decentralize access to healthcare because we find that most of the healthcare today is highly centralized to the urban population and about 80% of the population don't have really access to good quality healthcare. So that's where we want to change the game and ensure that we make decentralized solutions which can go right up to the primary level and every patient everywhere, irrespective of geography or economic status, has access to high quality healthcare solutions. So one such thing that we are doing is in the molecular diagnostic space, where we are making sure that high quality disease diagnostics is happening at the primary level, which means that people get diagnosed early on and get treated appropriately. That not only saves lives and the patient's outcome improves, but at the same time, they also stop spreading the infection to other people. So overall, the society benefits and the disease management becomes more effective.
Okay. Next question, Saurabh. I think you should be possibly in hot fire now, right? Because tariffs and I don't know, would that have an impact on something that makes you think a lot these days in terms of what could happen? But jokes apart, on a serious note, what do you focus on now?
So Hindalco, as you know, is we make aluminum, we make copper, and we make alumina. So if these three businesses, if you look at all of these three, are products, in a manner of speaking, whose time has come. Because these are driving what is driving a lot of, the global growth today. So we used to be, in the past, largely a commodity company which was making, the base metals or the base products. Over the last few years, largely a decade, I think we've moved, distinctively into value-added products. So everything that touches lives impacts lives. So, the flat roll products that go into cars and cans that, are consumed by us. A lot of metal products that are used by us in forms of wires, in forms of packaging, in forms of, what's the latest kid on the block, which is all of the battery, EV, semiconductor applications. And likewise in the specialty alumina space, where thermal management, products where, again, the whole semiconductor ecosystem, the whole energy storage ecosystem is exploding with need for new raw materials. The specialty alumina is playing there. So, the focus of the company is to move downstream and do this in a very sustainable manner. So that's really what we're doing.
You've heard all three of them, Mohammed, right? So, as someone who's focused on attracting FDI to the region, uh, this kind of gives a diverse perspective of how India is looking at uh, playing in the manufacturing field in the next 10, 20 years. What specific strategies or initiatives are being implemented to position Dubai as a global hub for advanced manufacturing and production?
So on that, I mean, I think we are highly focused on manufacturing. We're highly focused on specifically on bringing in advanced manufacturing, bringing in manufacturing that is a lot more cost effective and efficient. We have an economic agenda, which is His Highness gave us the goal to double our GDP in a decade. So it's called D33. And the biggest opportunity that we see in that economic agenda actually ties into manufacturing. We feel that for us to be able to achieve that target, that manufacturing output in Dubai specifically needs to triple, anywhere between 2.5 times to 3x. And that only comes if we are focused on driving more productivity through our manufacturing. So we've done a lot of work in terms of the base layer, I would say. Obviously, Dubai, you know it as a super connector, a hub for not only just the region, but for some businesses globally as well. There's been a lot of work that has gone in from the federal government, let's say, into signing CEPAs. Like we signed a CEPA with India in 2022. It has created sort of frictionless trade. And the important thing is that we've seen that relationship, which was a very strong and robust relationship, go to the next level. And what many manufacturers are realizing now is that it is not a bilateral relationship. The idea here is to build a network on access to markets through Dubai, right? So using Dubai to be able to access other CEPA partners, be it Turkey, Egypt, Indonesia, very populous countries around the world. So we've worked quite a bit on that. We've worked a bit on helping manufacturers also reduce costs. So we've changed power policies that now allow manufacturers to generate up to 100% of their requirement on site. And we've seen many take advantage of that. We've seen them take advantage of that in terms of reducing their peak hour, their consumption in peak hours, and overall utilities have come down anywhere between 10 to 12%. But also, being in an ecosystem that drives innovation as well, right? You mentioned, how do we incorporate things such as Gen AI and next age robotics? I've personally been to some facilities, some state-of-the-art facilities that are really testing a lot of new and interesting technologies. One of them has a robot that goes around the factory floor, let's say, and basically if somebody has a requirement for a specific tool, can punch it into a device, the robot goes, picks it up from inventory, comes and delivers it to the person wherever they are in the system. They've taken into, and the reason why I bring this up is many of those who've been to the Museum of the Future, you'll notice like the dogs, the robotic dogs. So these guys, what they do is they actually have sensors on them and they patrol the facility. So if there's a fuse box that's heating up and is warm, it sends an alarm before you have an incident and a crisis, right? So it's being in an ecosystem like that actually pushes some of these global manufacturers to say that I need to get to that next level. I need to get on the same wavelength of pushing myself, pushing the company to that, to that cutting edge. So it says something about being in an ecosystem like that.
Okay. I was listening to a speech by AI Minister Mr. Lama, and I was interacting with Elon Musk and about the Boring Company and so on. I just want to understand from your perspective, how is India's manufacturing ecosystem kind of progressed, and what kind of sectors do you think are very interesting when you look at India?
I mean, when we look at India, obviously, very strong trading partner. The corridor that we have built between Dubai and India is robust, so it allows for transfer of knowledge, transfer of actual physical goods, physical people to come across, talent, etc. But when we look at our manufacturing strategy specifically, we see a lot of opportunity with India in FMCG, F&B. Consumer electronics is huge, and I think one of the things that I was alluding to in the speech is that there's I think a new recognition when it comes to the quality of the craftsmanship and the end product, etc., on a global base, where there have been global successes, that Indian products, Indian goods are not just made for India, they're made for the world, and the world has a newfound appreciation for them. And marrying that up, I'd say, with the benefits of Dubai, a logistics network that's been built, and also Indian IP, a manufacturing or a made in the UAE, I think allows for a premium even to be associated with that product, and that's what we really want to work with Indian manufacturers on. Just to be clear, I mean, we think that Dubai is a home for manufacturers of all subsectors. But we really feel strongly about, when it comes to pharma, when it comes to consumer electronics, when it comes to chemicals, F&B, we have a competitive advantage, which we're happy to talk about in a bit more detail in a different setting, though.
Yeah, and we have a consumer electronics guy right next to you. The next question, we've sort of seen through the various reports that we do in terms of how manufacturing sector is contributing more and more towards overall value creation in the ecosystem of most valuable companies or wealth creation in Hurun India Rich List and so on. How do you see this impact cascade over the next decade, and what are the kind of challenges or complexities that you foresee, from each of your perspective, over the next decade? Would be interesting for the audience here.
Yeah, I think to answer the first part, that was where I see the manufacturing going. I think right now, if you see manufacturing as a percentage of GDP in India has been at 15%. I mean, now with the government incentives and initiatives with PLI coming in on not only FGs across sectors, but also for components now, I see that there is definitely going to be an uptick in terms of value creation. And like you see, one of the challenges today, I feel, is the training of the large demographic dividend we have. I feel India is quite fortunate to have this demographic dividend, but you have this large diaspora of people who are in agricultural jobs. And I think the idea of them, not too many countries have been able to jump straight from agriculture to services. It's been manufacturing which has been the catalyst to sort of absorb that workforce. And I think the main challenge now is going to be in adequate skilling of these people so that they can basically be employed in good manufacturing firms.
So what are you doing about it? Are you doing anything?
So we have planned to set up, and we have set up a center of excellence now, which will be focusing on just on-role, on-job skill training to make sure that we're able to absorb that, because I think there's a big gap right now between what skills required by the industry and what these employees are. So center of excellence is going to be a big thing for us to see.
Center of excellence in every small tier 2, tier 3 cities and
correct.
Okay, interesting.
So to your first question, which is, how do you see the role of manufacturing in the next 10 years? I think, the tide is turning, and as he said, I think we've seen the first time, I think, the share of industry in the GDP went up versus services. And that's a change of trend after, I think, 3 decades or something, or even longer, I don't know. It's an indication of the fact that, India's manufacturing prowess is growing, and, I think we are here to, prevail, and it's a start of something really nice. What do you think the impact of this will be? I think, we just recently got the milestone of being the most populous country. Manufacturing can employ far more people than anything else can. Manufacturing has a lot of indirect benefits as well. Manufacturing is done through actual physical places of work which are spread all over the country. So the impact on on the society, on what we do with the communities that we live in, and the impact, the employment that is generated, not just the employment, but through the CSR work, through the community engagement work, every manufacturing setup is actually creating a new social ecosystem. So the whole agenda of national development is actively contributed by manufacturing. You've also seen, how when the IT services was going up, the whole the academia moved to a certain, focus on development of that kind of talent. As manufacturing goes up, you'll also see, the academia, the academic agenda of the country shift to, more R&D focus, to more, product development focus. It becomes a much richer agenda in that sense. And so in many ways, I think, the role of manufacturing in the next decade for a country like India is very, very critical. That said, I think we are still very small. There's a long way to go. It is, yes, I mean 15% to 25% is going to be a long journey, but we are still, I don't know what, 1/12 of China's manufacturing, as in terms of size. And if you have to be anywhere on that global scale, there's a lot to be done. What needs to be done from our point of view, I think, as a company which is going decisively into value-added play, we still see challenges of, to the point made on skills. I think skilling is one big, big challenge. The ecosystems for product development, technology development, to make sure that the academia, the research setups, the laboratories, because you can import everything and make the final product, but that's not how manufacturing works. The entire supply chain has to be indigenized, and for that entire supply chain to be indigenized, you have to have the technology, you have to have the people, you have to have the whole setup to be able to do it. And we still find ourselves going a lot, abroad to do it. We'll have to insource it. Development of new markets, because the markets abroad are in many places are kind of ahead, and they require a certain level of capability, which will only be possible if we access those markets, and those markets have to be created. And I think last but not the least, I think the whole technology piece that we are so good at, if we can deploy it for the use of it for developing quality, consistency, lowering our cost of production, increasing our productivity and throughput, which is what is going to make us globally competitive, even more competitive than we already are. I think all of these are the opportunities that I see for us going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we are sitting on a huge opportunity, and we know the geopolitical situations, how rapidly they are changing, and it's now become necessary for India to get into manufacturing in a serious way. I think we have all the talent pool, we have all the capabilities in-house. I think it's just a question of, as you said, the right ecosystem and the mindset and the right level of skill development to enable that we are able to not only just manufacture, but also innovate and manufacture. I think that is the key from my point of view. Every startup should focus on looking at innovation as the driving force, because that's what is going to be sustainable for a manufacturing company. You get into a Me Too operation, you're always going to compete with, global giants, and most people get wiped off much early on. What can see you through in the long term and make you really grow and become a large economy will come only through innovations. So I think that's something which should be drilled into everybody, and focus always should be on trying to see how you're innovating and making a bigger difference and being unique and getting into a different segment altogether. But we have the talent. I've seen so many startup companies, so many innovators with very bright ideas. If all of them can be given the right direction and the right kind of a pathway, we can do far better. And if India really wants to be a 5 trillion economy, it can only come from manufacturing. There's no other way it can do it.
Okay. So one key theme, Mohammed, that all of them have been saying is about skilled workforce, right? So connecting that, considering your focus on attracting world-class talent, how do you see Dubai's role in fostering necessary skilled workforce support a thriving manufacturing sector? And what role do you think collaboration between public and private sector will play in this effect?
When it comes to talent, I think they're very fundamental things that talent are looking for. Something that we at Dubai have been doing is welcoming people from all over the world, right? To find opportunity, prosperity in Dubai, right? And welcoming them to integrate into communities that they will find in Dubai amongst themselves, but also to experience other communities from around the world. If we think about, Indian community in Dubai has been there for many, many decades, right? But look at the transformation of what that community has been. If you go back 40 odd years ago, it was largely low skilled, right? It was largely blue collar workers, let's say. Today, if we look at that mix, it's more around 35% is high skilled labor from of the workforce that is Indian. Is about 35% of that is high skilled, and it is flipping. And this is, it's very indicative of our economic journey as well. We looked at the decade just prior to COVID, right? And what our economic output was during that period of time. The growth rate was, somewhere around 3.5%, but it was predominantly labor-driven. And when we say labor-driven, it was a lot of time, effort, money spent on developing the infrastructure, right? Now that sort of the infrastructure is there, our next phase of growth is focusing more on productive growth. Hence, manufacturing being a big part of this agenda. But as we set these sort of targets, we've noticed that there are people that want to be part of this journey. You mentioned His Excellency Minister Amar Al-Ulama, our Minister of AI, right? In the last couple of years, the number of AI talent that has come into Dubai has quadrupled, and that is just because of people have associated Dubai with AI, with a lot of our initiatives that we're putting into. So we're working very hard to attract some of this world-class talent and bring them into, one of the few cities around the world in which people from 190 different countries actually reside in and can actually come and visit from, right? So it's very powerful to say that we are, as we were talking about in terms of R&D and research and going to that next level, a big part of that is collaboration. A big part of that is knowledge sharing across borders. There's very few places in the world that you can actually, if you're a global entity, that you say that I can bring some of my best talent from the Middle East, from India, from China, from the US, and put them all physically in the same room. And, I'm a very strong believer of actually physical presence to co-create and collaborate rather than doing them over Zoom and Teams. Dubai is a wonderful platform to be able to do that. And, one of the tools that we used early on was a golden visa program, right? That got a lot of people excited about exploring Dubai and committing a bit more. And it's a program that we continue to roll out. But it's also gotten people, I almost want to say, kind of addicted to a quality of life. So you find more and more people that say that, previously say, I lost a job, I lost a thing, I have a month and 90% of the time I'm going to go home. We want to keep some of this great talent because now they have the opportunity to explore and do something maybe perhaps on their own. They explore other opportunities, and we keep that knowledge base there. And it's something that I think many businesses that have set up cross-border, have an office in Dubai, will attest to as well.
Okay, last question to round of the panel. I think Donald Trump said, "Drill, baby, drill." Then Macron and another, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Macron, French leader said, "Charge, baby, charge." Right? So there is definitely two clear divides of world in terms of sustainability. How important do you think sustainable manufacturing is for India? Or can we wait a little and do some manufacturing and then talk about sustainability? What are your thoughts?
So, for us, honestly, I don't know where this question of, either or is coming. As Mr. Godrej also said, I don't think it's an either or question because there is only one way to do it now. And that is the way, and that's the way, the only way to do it is to do it right. And frankly, I think, we've over-glamorized this decarbonization agenda. I mean, because sustainability is not only about carbon. Sustainability is so much about doing so many things right. I mean, it's about your waste management, it's about your it's about carbon, of course, it's about water, it's about community impact, it's about ecosystem, the ecology management, and frankly, I mean, if you don't do it that way, I mean, we've now seen enough examples of how if you don't do manufacture sustainably, it comes and bites back. So, for your own good and, because there is, when you go to the global markets, it's almost now become a license to work with companies. Yes, there is still no visible premium in all sectors for a sustainable product versus a non-sustainable product. But are we getting to a world where customers are looking at your sustainability credentials and giving you a preference for it? I think decisively yes. Is it likely to become your license to, get into a customer's office? I think we are moving there. So for all the right reasons, for your own existence as well as for the, for building the right future and having good business, sustainability is here to stay.
Investments too, right? Some certain sovereign funds have a mandate that the companies have to be sustainable for them to allocate the capital towards investments.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. Today, we have no choice, no options. We have already destroyed the environment so badly. There's no scope for waiting further. So everybody has to act now. It has to be completely some kind of a prerequisite for anybody to start manufacturing without having sustainability as a part of the protocol and having proper audits for sustainability and actually implementing these measures. I think no company should be allowed to function, right? Water, for example, today is a big issue and we are just flouting all kinds of rules and dumping all kinds of bad water everywhere. Today there is no water body which can claim to be pure anywhere, right? And so that's the level that it's gone to. So where is the scope for polluting it even more? I mean, we just finished already, right? And we can see the impact. We're already seeing the climate change impacts. We're already seeing how the environment is getting completely destroyed all around us. Going back to our childhood, what it was and what it is today is crazy, right? So it must be implemented absolutely. If nothing else, this is the first thing to be implemented, I think.
I think Mr. Saurabh captured it perfectly. Like, it's not a question now, it's basically how much we can do. And I think it's very important to map it across your entire supply chain, right? From the movement of materials from your suppliers right up to the manufacturing, monitoring your waste management, water, electricity. And I feel now the culture has to be set in such a way that even the workforce starts to become ingrained in them. So they're also sort of know more about this and are making the right choices in their everyday lives. So I think it's very important now.
Cool. I think that's it. Thank you very much. Big round of applause for the panelists. Thank you.